Dream, search, drive. Cars.co.za.
Keep your adventure alive, because when it comes to finding the right part at the right price, there's just no place like Midas for the love of cars.
I'm Thinus De Beer from US Trucks. We import American cars, mostly the Rams, make them right-hand drive, rebuild them into right-hand drive, and then sell in South Africa and also all the neighboring countries, Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe. There's quite a few places that we've exported to, and yeah, that's a passion really for me than more than a job. I ended up starting the company because I wanted an SRT10 back in 2005 after they were released in 2003, and I had it as a screensaver in my accounting office. I'm an accountant by trade, so yeah, I ended up importing, I wanted an SRT10, and I thought if I import a couple of trucks and resell them, then mine would be cheaper. And I always joke about it, but if anybody had told us what it entailed to import cars and do it in mass production, if you want to call it that, you had to homologate the vehicles and go through that whole process, and honestly was quite overwhelming. But yeah, we did it, and here we are. It's now 15 years. We've done something like 350 or 400 cars, I'm not sure. And currently driving the TRX, which is also iconic. I think the Sandblast Edition especially really had to look for this one. I think it is a very special car. Only limited numbers built in the States, and we were lucky to find this one. So the TRX has got the Hellcat motor, which is still a variant of the Hemi. It's only 6.2 litres, whereas the Hemi in general is the 5.7 that most of the guys know, and then it came out with a 6.4 litre, and this is a 6.2 litre variant with a slightly less compression, and then obviously supercharged. So it makes 702 horsepower. I think it's something like 880 newton meters of torque, so 527 kilowatts. It's a lot. It's a lot of power for this truck. I mean, acceleration probably about 4 seconds, 4.1 seconds, depending on the day and the conditions and whatever. But it's, for a car this size, it surprises absolutely everybody. So, I mean, my M3, which is a 2010 M3, would be slower than this. It's just ridiculous to think that there's cars that's actually also considered performance cars that be outperformed by a bakkie that, it looks like it weighs 3 tons, but it's 2.6 tons or something. So it's still a heavy car, but it really has amazing performance figures. Fuel consumption is about, I'd say, 3 to 4 Ks to a litre, so 20 to 25 litres per 100 Ks, depending on how you drive. Long distance you might get something better, but that's the all-round figure. And I must say, I've never had a guy that bought a TRX that asked me about fuel consumption anyway, so not that it really matters. If the guy's asking about that, he's not going to buy one. Yeah, the suspension on this truck is completely it's computerized, so it's quite fast in its reaction time. It's made by Bilstein, and it's a really good suspension. It can actually harden and soften itself. So obviously, if you put it in bar mode, similar to most of the other brands, the off-road trucks, they have similar to a bar mode or an off-road mode that gets the suspension really soft, soaks up all the bumps and stuff. And then you've got the sport mode, which gets really hard, or street mode, which is in between. There's even a snow mode, which limits the power to less power, and the suspension also adapts to the conditions. It's all electronically controlled, and it's beautiful how that works and how they can make a shock so react so quickly with electrics. but it really works. It's amazing. It doesn't raise or lower the car, but it definitely makes the shock harder or softer, which then adapts the suspension completely. Even the steering, which is now electric on all the Rams, is totally adjustable then. So when you put it in rock mode, the steering gets really soft, and if you put it in street mode, it's a bit harder, and if you put it in sport mode, it's like definitely tighter. You can feel it. So yeah, those are the benefits of having the electronics control all of that for you. And with those different modes, it's nearly endless. I mean, it's got so many different modes. You know, if you put it in sport mode, it'll put the gearbox in a faster shifting mode. The suspension will adapt. The steering will adapt. So it really changes everything. Even the exhaust note changes. So quite interesting. I think there's very little that these cars don't have that you wouldn't see in a luxury German, car or an SUV. It's got reclining seats at the back. They're heated and ventilated front and rear. Electric windows all round, even a sliding rear window at the back. Sunroof is all there. It's got absolutely all the features that you can imagine. It's got surround cameras. It's got the lane change features. It'll keep it in the lane. It's got the speedo cruise functions where it'll follow the car in front of you and brake automatically and accelerate again if the car's gone. And so all of those features are built into the car, and that's been around for a couple of years in the Rams. So quite a well-equipped car. Like I said, the 12-inch screen, and everything is controllable from here. So your climate control will be controlled from there. The seats will be controlled from there. It's all on the screen. And that really makes it so nice to use. I always say it's like buying maybe a Range Rover Sport, but you can load your quad bike on the back and jump the dunes. So it's pricey, fair enough, but you're getting a lot for the price. Even though they're expensive, there's a lot of cars in this price bracket. So it's not like 2.7 million for a 1500 Ram is a lot of money, because the other cars that compare is in a similar price bracket, and the guys are paying that, and there's a lot of those cars out there. So the market's quite big. Yeah, I think the conversion process in general is over the years got a lot more difficult. At a price that these cars are going for, you really need to deliver excellence. So the leather must be perfect, all the gaps must be right. So we've gone to great lengths to try and achieve that, and part of the process is now the 3D printing that we've done. We can scan parts and reverse engineer it, basically then reproduce on a right-hand drive part that wasn't available before, and we can get the finishes just perfect. So that really helped us, but it still is quite difficult to achieve, especially if you don't have access to the CAD files or whatever. Like I said, you've got to get it scanned and then redrawn in CAD and then basically printed or injection molded. So it's quite a process. A lot of people think it's the steering on the right hand side, but it's the stuff that goes with it that really is difficult. You've got to consider the things like the air conditioning unit that sits under the dash. Now, instead of sucking the air from the right hand side of the car and then distributing it, it's now got to suck the air from the left hand side of the car. So you've got to flip that whole thing over, and the whole design changes. Then there's quite a bit of wiring that gets changed. I think we add something like 230 meters of wire into the car to lengthen all the harnesses across, and a simple thing like the door controls, because you can open and close all the windows from the driver's door. All those, and the driver's module's got to change together with the seats, and the seat belt wiring has got to change, and also the airbags in the seats and all those kind of things. So it's not only cosmetics and the mechanical stuff like the steering wheel or the shafts and whatever to connect the steering. So there's a lot of aspects involved. If you've done as many as we've done, the process gets shorter and shorter because you sort of perfect it. And I think we've got it down to about 9 days or so on a conversion. I know where to look and I know what's changed, so you know what to look at. to know that it's been converted, but the everyday guy is not going to know. You know, it looks very similar to the original car. In order to register a car in South Africa, it's got to comply to South African or European standards. So everything's got to be retested. You know, the cars obviously comply to all the federal standards in America, but RAM might not have targeted the European market. So none of the components are really tested, except maybe the windscreens or whatever. Very few of the components are tested to European standards, so it's got to be retested. You have to retest the brakes, you've got to retest seatbelt mounting points, you've got to retest the seatbelts, which makes it very difficult. If you had the resources that the OEMs have where they could just test several things at once, it makes it a lot easier. But when you bring in a new model, you inevitably have one or maybe two cars that you bring in, and you have to do the testing, and, and the car's got to go for brake tests, and at the same time for, you know, the headlights got to test, and the guy, somebody's got to test the installation of the lights and windscreens, and all those got to be inspected. And so you've got to wait because you get a booking to do the brake test, and it all takes time. So it really, really is difficult. And I often get inquiries for Toyota Tundras or other American cars, F-150s, a lot of those, Challengers, Chargers. If you go to a passenger vehicle, it's got to get crash tested too. So it's another destructive test. You lose one car if it passes. If it doesn't pass, you might lose more. So it really gets costly. But the problem is, if we want to bring in a Tundra or a F-150, if you're not going to bring in 50 or 100 of them, it really doesn't make any commercial sense.
Cars.co.za. Are you busy trying to decide between 2 cars, 3 cars, 4 cars, 5 cars, 6 cars, and getting absolutely lost in all of the specs and all of the different pricing? Well, we have an excellent compare tool on our main website and in our app for you to use. It's very detailed, it's very slick and quick and efficient, and I highly recommend it. I use it all the time when I'm doing research for our car shoots. So check it out. We'll put the link in the description below, and tell us what you think. Tell us if it helped you out.
Keep your adventure alive, because when it comes to finding the right part at the right price, there's just no place like Midas. For the love of cars.